take over the whole world. That's what we're made for.
There has been a lot of talk around student-teacher relationships and if they're appropriate for or even belong in programming aimed at a teen and young adult audience. Television really started seeing a pushback from these kinds of relationships with Pretty Little Liars. Arya's relationship with her teacher, while popular, faced a lot of criticism as it seemed as if Pretty Little Liars was glamorizing this type of relationship to its largely teen and young adult audience. Then more recently, Riverdale came out in its first season, and they had a relationship between the star of the show, Archie, and his teacher. Now, by this time, the Me Too and Time's Up movements had happened, so audiences were not here for it. And as a result, the show axed the relationship between Archie and his teacher completely, and we never saw that teacher again after season 1. More recently, shows like A Teacher on Hulu showed what felt like a more realistic progression of a student-teacher relationship between a young boy and his teacher. While A Teacher wasn't perfect, we were shown the progression over time of how that relationship affected him for the worse, and it felt like one of the first times the audiences were seeing the true consequences of a relationship like this and why it's problematic. Degrassi is no stranger to controversy, and during its 14-season run, it did not shy away from the student-teacher relationship dynamic. There were several of these relationships throughout the years, perhaps the most famous one being the very first one depicted, Paige and Mr. Olender. The relationship did not really face harsh consequences other than Mr. Olender being fired and breaking up with Paige. Then there was Sav and Miss Oh, whose relationship stayed secret and faced zero consequences. There was Tristan and Mr. Yates, which saw a very predatory teacher and marks the first time that a teacher had a purely sexual relationship with a student. And finally, there was Manny and her drama teacher, her professor. While Manny is over 18, her professor still abused his position of power and treated Manny horribly. Today, we are talking about Degrassi's student-teacher relationships. Were they glamorized? Were the consequences realistic? And would they work now on teen television? This is a Degrassi Roundtable discussion, and today we're discussing Degrassi student-teacher relationships. Please welcome to the discussion me, Bianca. I'll be your host.
Hi, I'm Caroline.
Hi, I'm Avis.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alyssa.
All right, so let's go ahead and jump right into it, ladies. My first question is, some fans of the show argued that Mr. Olender was not much older than Paige and that they had a genuine attraction to each other. Others say that this does not excuse the fact that Mr. Olender pursued someone who was not only underage, but his student, and therefore he was abusing his power as an educator. Furthermore, once caught, Mr. Olender threw Paige under the bus and says that she was stalking him to save his own career. However, later on, he admits to the relationship and as a result is fired. Interestingly, this is not the end of their relationship. In the following season, season 5, the two meet up and Paige thinks that they will reconcile and pick up right back where they left off before they were caught. However, Mr. Olender, now unemployed and living like a bum, officially ends things with her and as a parting gift gives her a bag of marijuana. This leaves straight-to-edge Paige feeling distraught and humiliated. Were the consequences of the Paige and Mr. Olender relationship realistic? And if not, how should it have played out?
I don't think it was realistic in the way he got off pretty easy. I'm like, how did Canadian laws work, like, differ from, like, in the States? Like, are they more strict about, like, the whole underage relationships, like teacher-student? Because here, like, if a teacher even, like, has a somewhat relationship suspects with the student, like, that happened at my high school, you're going straight to jail. So it seems like he just got off with like a slap on the hand. It was like, oh, well, you got fired. You won't be a teacher now. I'm like, no, you should be doing jail time, dude. Like,
hard jail time. You should be under the jail.
I think there are a lot of factors there that could be contributing to it. One, the way that those things are handled in Canada, which I can't speak to. But two, like, Paige is like 17, 18 at that point, or just about, right? And I looked at the age, and this is not me justifying it at all. that relationship was not okay. But I think factors as far as whether or not they're going to pursue legal ramifications. I looked at the ages when we first started talking about doing this roundtable, and Matt was only 21, still too old to be dating a high schooler. Like, why are you? Honestly,
right. Why is that your dating pool?
Right.
Matt's a loser. I think of all of these like teachers that we're going to talk about, I don't think Matt's a predator so much as a total loser. He's just lame. And that's why he's dating a high school student, because he's lame.
That's the longest one. It was like 5 episodes and I was really like, why is it so long? That's why I took notes, because their scenes were either the main or like the second plot, not the C plot, you know, not the bullshit plot.
Right.
It just seemed to me like that was the one they wanted to convince you of was the most acceptable relationship, because they depicted it the longest.
Right.
I felt like, okay, they went out of their way to show that he was younger. They dressed him differently. And the other teachers, even if they were introduced, you know, quickly and then something happened, they were teachers. They were not student teachers. He's the only student teacher that was introduced in this relationship dynamic. And I think that plays a part in how they carry it on for a long amount of time, because he was young, she's young. And it's not so, and they want you to have ambiguity about it. They want you to not know, not be convinced that it's predatory because he's a student too. And he has a lot to risk too.
It's definitely still not okay, but I think that probably I can see a case like that not having legal ramifications.
Right.
Given,
because
you know, I think we talked in the chat about, we looked up age of consent in Canada and it's 16. And I can't remember if Paige is a junior or a senior that year when that's happening.
I think she was a junior.
They also compare it to the Marco and
they do.
Dylan relationship, because Dylan pops in at her job and he's just like, and Marco's like, he's being all macho about it, and she actually says like, are you preying on Marco?
She did say that,
right?
Because the age difference is similar. And I'm just like,
interesting question.
Degrassi, why did you go there? But like, true. It's just like,
well, because if they had just met at the mall,
right? Like that she would know.
If he wasn't her teacher,
he's
in
not,
any way,
because
shape,
he's
or
not
form.
technically her teacher. He's not.
Why didn't he just
and then
wait
he becomes
until she graduated?
Why didn't he just wait until she graduated?
He was about to graduate. Why risk
Especially
everything?
because he was in teachers college and he could stay in the school, but he got kicked out of his program.
Yeah.
Why not just wait until she was legal and you're legal and it's fine? Because he's a loser.
Yes.
Because he's a loser.
He's a loser.
With his greasy hair.
And his bangs are so greasy and I can't stand it. And I'm like, this is what we had to deal with in the early 2000s. And we thought this was hot.
Yeah, I feel like he got a lot of passes. Like people like looked at it, but like wondered. A lot of people in Degrassi, including Mr. Simpson, who saw them on a date, wondered about it. But they were like,
yes. That's why.
Well,
I think that he didn't say anything until it was like, and I really think that that's an important, like, how do I make a ruling when Hatsalakos is in there and it's like, how do I make a ruling if I don't know what you saw?
Yeah.
Like, and they're like, oh, he didn't see us. And Simpson is a good guy, especially since Simpson goes on to have his own indiscretions.
Yeah.
Like he is a good guy in the way of, he's not going to just like interpret something he sees. He's gonna wait and see what's going on. He might not have the best feeling about it, and I'm not justifying it at all. Like you said, Caroline, it's not like Mr. Oleander is an old dude praying like in his mid-20s, like been out of teacher college, you know, like been working in schools. He is still a student himself, and that is, I think, why they wanted to do the arc in the long amount of time that it took them to fall in love and everything.
Yeah.
Like, because they're both students.
One of the things I was saying to Bianca before we started was that like, none of these relationships are okay. And like, you've definitely got everybody, whether they're like, yes, I've got this power and I'm going to abuse it or not, they're all abusing power. None of it's okay. But in the case of Mr. Oleander and Miss O, they're just losers who can't date people their own age. And that's a problem that they should look at. But with the case of like Mr. Yates and Mick, those are predators. It wouldn't matter if Tristan was not a student and was of age. Mr. Yates is preying on vulnerable people. Mick is preying on vulnerable people.
I'll agree with that, because it's different. The process is different to them being engaged with each other. It's not like an attraction. It's like, I'm zeroing in on you because you have an issue.
Back to Paige and Oleander, though. The thing that really sticks out to me in their story, because, I mean, let's be honest, if you weren't dating a 21-year-old when you were 17, 18, you had a friend who was, or maybe that's just me.
And you didn't agree with it, right?
Yeah.
I didn't agree with it. I never did.
Neither.
Okay,
I had a friend who was
weird.
Me too.
I had a friend who was 15 dating a 29-year-old, and that was like a whole thing that I was never okay with. But like 18, 21, I feel like at that age didn't seem that weird to me, because when you're on the younger side of it, you're like, oh yeah,
a lot of your scenes bleed over. Yeah, a lot of your scenes bleed over.
Especially, and like I've always worked restaurants. So like you've got everybody's mostly like 18 to 25, and then there's the couple of 40-year-olds that party with everybody else anyway. But the thing that always sticks out to me about that storyline, it's the beginning of me really hating Hatzilakos.
Yeah.
And how quick she is to assume that Paige is in the wrong here.
I know.
And like,
right?
She does. That's why Simpson asks her, whose side are we on? And that's an important question, because you should not, there's a representative from the teachers college there already. You don't need to be the representative for him.
Right.
He's got one. You need to be the representative for the people that go to your school, for the kids that go to your school, because technically they're all underage.
Yeah.
Most of them. Why aren't you defending these kids? Why aren't you standing up and saying, we do not want predators in our school?
Had Matt not said we had a relationship, like he had to admit it for them to finally be like, uh-oh, there's a problem.
What would have happened to Paige if he didn't admit it? Paige was about to go down for all of that. And she was about to let herself go down for all of that. I remember watching that episode live, and I was just like, Paige.
See, and that's also the storyline where I lose a lot of respect for Paige, because I'm like, you are a queen. And
I don't like, why are you this pauper?
Who is going to dunk you and give you a bag of weed? Like,
I know.
Girl, like, love yourself.
What happened to new look, new year, new Paige?
Right, in that instant.
Her queen status is in question at that moment, because she is willing to let it go all down for some dude who's not even worth half of her time. And
can we point out that her enemy was the one who had to out that relationship?
Such an iconic Manny scene.
I know.
I was gonna say, man, I took a notes of that one. I was just like, hey, Mr. Pedophile, I mean Oleander. Don't want to make your girlfriend Paige more jealous of me. I'm like, iconic.
Like, literally, all of it.
I'm mad that Paige was like, she was so mean when literally all Manny did was say, happy weekend, Paige.
I know.
And walk by her. And Paige was just like, I got angry with her for no reason. And Manny was like, thank you, Manny, for taking my practice this morning. She's been covering your butt. You don't say like happy weekend to her. You could have just been moved on. You could have just went about your business. You could have just said happy weekend to her. And she wouldn't have had no problem with you, but you want to be rude to her. And then she outed you. I would have did the same thing. Manny has big like Gemini Cancer energy, and I know people say she's like a Leo or something. I'm like, no. She'll tell you like she will read you for filth. She is loyal, but she will read you for filth if you come at her sideways. Like,
she's hilarious.
Like, I have been covering for you all week, and you out here taking extra practices with this nasty grease ball.
Yes.
Right.
And I've been covering for you, and I didn't know Hazel didn't know. She's your best friend. Why didn't you tell your best friend? That's something wrong with that. Why didn't you tell your best friend?
Right.
Yes. Yeah, that's red flag.
And then Hazel got mad. Another iconic scene, like, OG Mr. Oh, I thought you only had eyes for Paige.
Yeah, she made him lose
his place while Mr. Simpson and Miss Hatzilakos was in there.
Yep.
He's like, I seem to have lost my place. And he's like, okay, I'm going to take over your class for you because I used to teach it. But are you good? Are you good?
He knew he was wrong. I'm going to move on to the second question. Miss O is another example of a young teacher who wasn't much older than the student she was involved with. The difference between her relationship with Sav as opposed to Paige's relationship with Mr. Olender is that Miss O never faces any kind of consequences because her and Sav's relationship is never found out. They are never caught, and fans are meant to think that they are an adorable couple who we should root for. How should the relationship have played out, and were the producers irresponsible in not having any consequences for Miss O, and were things different for Miss O because she was a woman?
Yes, things are different for her because she was a woman.
Yes. I went back and watched those episodes when they meet in the bar and her friends are there and they're all like, oh, is this the kid who wrote the song for you? Like,
right. Why are her friends
why
like
is
not...
anybody acting like this is cute?
It's
Right.
cute.
Like,
Why are her friends setting her up
Teenager.
to think that this is okay? Right. With the teenager. Like, this dude is in high school.
So I'm gonna be honest, when the episode first came out, I think I was still in high school. And at the time, I had a completely different opinion back then than I do now, looking back.
Of course.
But I was like, oh, wow, they're cute. Like, they can get away with it because, like, Miss O's, like, this really pretty teacher. And, like, all the guys like her anyway. And I was like, well, Sav's almost gonna graduate. And then once he graduates, they can live happily ever after. And I'm looking back now and I was like, girl, why were you thinking like that? Like, this is not okay. Like,
I think when you are young, though, you have that different opinion, though. Like, you feel like, I remember how I felt in high school. I thought I was grown.
Yeah.
Right.
I thought I was grown.
Everything when you're in high school.
I knew everything and I knew where to send everybody. I didn't care what you said to me in high school. Like, I was grown and I didn't know what grown was.
Yeah.
And I think that that's like a point of Degrassi, though. It's like you think that when you graduate high school, you know, this is going to be the start of your adventure, but you got to go to college.
Yeah.
Most likely you're going to college and you're back at the bottom of the totem pole and it's the same cycle of not feeling quite grown enough. Like Miss O probably, and like she's like 24 something. Like she probably
23.
still feels 23. Yeah, she probably still feels like a child. I felt like a child at 23. I still feel like a child. Like you feel like you're not quite there yet. I think that that's something we got to keep in mind about these young teachers. It's probably like, okay, this is some youth right here. Like I'm surrounded by youth all day. I'm surrounded by people who are going to live the best part of your life in a lot of people's opinion. Like you're going off to college, you're experiencing things for the first time, but like that should not be your dating pool. I think that that's a lot of what it is she does not want to grow up. I think Sav makes, especially because she was able to educate him in several ways. Their arc was like the second longest.
Yeah, it was.
Compared to Paige and Matt. The Mr. Yates thing played out over 2 episodes. The Manny thing played out over 2 episodes as well. This Mrs. O and Sav plot is stretched out over like 4 episodes or something.
And I will say,
Why?
so like between like the way I was raised and educated and then working in, restaurants and having coworkers where there's these big age disparities and what have you, like, I don't think like you shouldn't be dating an 18-year-old. I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with an 18-year-old and a 23-year-old hanging out and talking about music.
Exactly. They could have just been music buddies.
Yeah,
they could have just been friends and it would have been fine.
Yeah.
Why you gotta mess with them?
Right. Me and Caroline before this started, we were like, not only was she like messing around with a student, which she shouldn't have been doing, but at a point where she was supposed to be chaperoning a school dance, watching over
something happened.
Yes, a school dance at Degrassi.
Yes.
Why aren't you chaperoning?
There has never been an event that doesn't have an issue.
I was gonna say they cannot, even daytime events. People show up drunk. People show up with knives. People show up ready to burn the place down, ready to start a bomb threat. Like, why are you not watching these people? Why is that not your top priority? You try to get your swerve on.
That should have been the episode where she got caught.
That should have been the episode where her jig was up. I agree with that. Like, what are you doing, Mrs. O?
Yes.
What are you doing?
There was no consequences for Miss O, though, at all.
She just continued right on and teaching.
Well, so the thing didn't last long enough, though. Like, it covers several episodes, but, like, nothing really happens until the last episode or 2.
Yeah.
And even then, not much happens. And then they're just kind of like, well, if this had happened a different way, it could have been great. But
I know, right? It was so strange.
I hate that. The writing was so rude. It's just like, why are you blaming it on the circumstances and how things played out versus the fact that this was not meant to be? This should not happen.
Don't you feel like, though, because she got away with it, like I could literally see her popping up in the HBO series, still hitting on students, still trying to get with her because she never got caught.
And would that be interesting to me? No, because that would be right on point. Because I think that if they did that, then that would be like, okay, that's her dating pool.
Yeah.
Miss O likes some young.
That was never the impression that I got from that relationship.
I was gonna say I did not get that she was preying on Sav. And that's
Like,
why,
she
like,
just-
way back when, I agreed with that. Like, I don't think that she was a predator. Like, predators, they have a system of where they eliminate people for this reason, that reason, and they actually zero in on somebody that they think is the easiest. I didn't see that in her. I think she genuinely enjoyed Sav's personality. That don't make her less of a creep,
No.
but she's not a predator.
Right. I don't
think know
that,
if I don't believe she would do it to other
I don't know.
If they were the
I
same,
don't know. Happened. They did click. They had chemistry.
yeah.
It's not cute. I never found it cute. When everybody was like, oh, this is cute, Miss Oh, he's singing songs and writing songs for Miss Oh. I'm like, what's wrong with you, boy? I never thought it was cute. All these student-teacher relationships.
If they were both high school students, like if Miss O wasn't a teacher, they're both like in high school together, then like I would think it was cute. But the fact that she was a teacher,
I think they joked once when she first got introduced that she was a student, that she was like, she went up in the front of the class and they mistook her for a student because she looks so young. But like, I feel like at some point they were like, you know, trying to make her, like kind of how they did with Matt, they were trying to make her seem younger than she really was. And I mean, she's young, she's not old.
Right.
But she's not the appropriate age to date, especially when you are a teacher.
I've taught for teenagers at my work, and I'm like, I would never think that, but I'm like thinking, like, I think of you as I'm like your higher up. I'm not thinking like, oh, you're cute, like let me go hit you up, what's your number? Like, no.
Those last couple of episodes before Sav graduated, he's got the beard and everything. I can see being a 23-year-old and being like,
Sav always looks
like, why you look so grown?
In high school, there was dudes that looked like they could go out and be drafted in the NFL. They look grown. Okay. And I think that's Sav just blossomed. He went from looking very young to looking very old within a season. I think that's why they did that. They chose the actor that looked the oldest to have this relationship. Paige always was the one who looked the oldest too.
Yeah.
She looked older, even though I think she's a beautiful woman and she's aged gracefully. She's always had the mature look about her that I think that they were like, they zeroed in on her character, like, especially since she had the thing where she was sexually assaulted and she has, you know, a bad eye for guys. And Sav is naive, but he looks old. Like, Sav is very out of his depth in most situations. What's his name? Mo was like, boom, chicken, like they all know that Mrs. O like likes him. You'd have to be blind to see that she don't approach people like that. She likes Sav.
I just like, and I think throw it out there. I just want everyone to know that I think any teacher that pursues a student is predatory, not okay.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Any teacher that is predatory, because I mean, even if you have a genuine attraction, which I don't think is your fault, especially if you're close in age, you should not pursue it.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you should keep that to yourself. Self-edit and be like, I need to go see my therapist.
Right. And if it's
this
leave that baby that you want to act like it is, wait a couple years.
Yeah.
Get some distance and then reach out on Facebook.
And then
be like, hey.
And then reconnect and then see what's popping once they are legal and of their own sound mind. And
and not just legal, but like,
I can't.
I can't imagine at 21, 23 years old dating somebody that I couldn't like go out with.
Yeah.
You know, even if they're 18, like, and even if they're not your student, like early 20s, you're spending a lot of your time at the bar. Why are you dating a child?
Once I hit 21, I was like, I wasn't looking at anybody under 21.
Under 21.
We live in Vegas. What am I going to do with you?
Exactly.
The legal drinking age in Canada, though, is 18.
It's 18.
That's why 18, they met in the bar.
Which changes it. Changes it. That's why when she got thrown out, she said, like, I'm 19. This is ridiculous.
Oh, yeah.
It's 18.
I think it's
my iPad.
19.
Yeah. I think it's 19. But I guess I don't know if that would change things still, though.
No, it shouldn't.
I think it depends on a lot of factors. But at the end of the day, in the situations we're looking at, these are teachers. Yeah. And if nothing else, like, that power dynamic is not okay.
For my next question, this is the third question. While all of the student-teacher relationships were not okay, a particularly hard to watch one was the one between Tristan and wannabe cool teacher Mr. Yates. From Mr. Yates inviting Tristan to his apartment and calling Tristan immature and ignoring him after he aggressively came on to Tristan and got mad when Tristan didn't want to have sex with him, to Tristan going back to his apartment and apologizing and eventually hooking up with him. After after their relationship is exposed, Mr. Yates is once again upset with Tristan, and the relationship ends upon Mr. Yates firing. Later on, Tristan is devastated when another classmate, Winston, says that Mr. Yates is creepy, as he had also come on to him in trying to touch him inappropriately, which breaks Tristan's heart. So, although the relationship was presented as consensual, it was still statutory rape what Mr. Yates did. Were there enough consequences for this relationship? And do we think that Tristan, being a boy, played into the seemingly glossed over aspect of how wrong it is what Mr. Yates did?
Are we allowed to swear on your show, Bianca?
Of course.
Okay, so let me start by saying, fuck Mr. Yates. Fuck that guy.
Honestly.
Fuck that
Like,
guy.
it's so, you've got this kid whose house is in turmoil. He's clearly like reeking of low self-esteem and desperation to begin with. And Mr. Yates, like, not only is he preying on him, but it's all this gross, like, negging and shit. Like, it's gross incel pickup artist. Like, you are doing so much damage to this poor kid.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. That's the only one I feel like where we don't ever get like the resolution. We know Mr. Yates leaves. There's supposed to be an investigation. We never find out what happened.
It's so sad for Tristan. I'll moderate. So I see on the Degrassi group how much Tristan hate there is.
Yeah.
It's comparable to the Ashley hate, which I get, because Ashley's a bag of trash. But no, the Tristan hate, I think, is unwarranted, because I think Tristan actually goes through some shit. If you ever, like, the fact that he was sneaking into closets to kiss his English teacher,
right,
and is compromising his friendships, and is compromising just like being truthful to himself and everybody else for this relationship, is crazy. It's 2 episodes, and those 2 episodes hit hard. Like, they really do. I feel like for the content that we get in these 2 episodes, there's very little romantic feelings. There's very little.
You're right.
And I agree, and I love that they do not emphasize on him being tender towards Tristan. They actually take it to the point where, okay, he's manipulating Tristan.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's very
and I think that
manipulative.
this is the one, maybe 1 or 2 episodes that they handled with a really nice hand, because I think that I felt as disgusted as was appropriate about this relationship in a way that I maybe didn't feel about. Well, I definitely didn't feel about Paige and Matt, and I felt personally about, Mrs. O and Sav, but I feel like a lot of people didn't see it that way. But this one, it was irrefutable. It was irrefutable the way that they did. There was a lot of ambiguity in the other depictions because they were different.
And Tristan was much younger too. He was like, what, a sophomore?
It's significantly younger, and he looks like a baby. He's so small, and it's
like
extremely
you said, like, the lack of romance, like with Oleander and O, still not cool. Get some therapy and some friends your own age. But like, I believe that they had genuine feelings for Paige and for Sav.
Especially,
it wasn't just like, here's an idiot, because they're a teenager and teenagers are kind of dumb and easy to manipulate. It's like, I fell for you. Whereas with Yates, it's very clear that it's just, you are easy prey.
You are easy prey. You are
like for his own personal gain.
It was,
and then like the whole like thing with the book club, or what, the writing club, and like he didn't let Tristan in, and the course that leads Tristan devastates and do whatever he can.
Exactly.
And I was like, that's
nagging him, and just
he was playing with his head in a way that he knew would work, which is disgusting. And it's like the mind play that happens between them two. They don't really do it anywhere else.
Right.
The mind play, it's like, it's very like disgusting to see how he is really like to the point of anxiousness, dependent on this relationship. That whole scene where they break up in the parking lot is disgusting.
Yeah.
Like, this is all your fault. I told you not to tell anybody. It doesn't work like that. That's pretty much all he says to him. Like those kind of like statements. And then he just drives off and he never sees him again.
He should have been arrested.
Right. And
he should have been arrested. What happened?
I think
I was outraged that he was. I mean, like, it was an investigation to where, like, especially because they don't know that they had sex. They don't know that. And Tristan denied everything. But like, you can see,
Tristan, but without any hard evidence and without Tristan coming forward, if Maya had seen something
if Maya had,
If
Maya
somebody
would have
had
been. I love
but,
Maya in this episode. I love Maya in general.
I love Maya in general, and I love Tristan too.
I love,
Like, yeah,
I love Tristan too. They have their ups
he's
and downs.
toxic.
I feel like
They're teenagers. Most of
I was
them are
gonna say they're
toxic
such
and
a
annoying.
toxic friendship.
Yeah.
Maya and Tristan are up there with Manny and
Emma.
freaking Emma. Yes, yes. They're toxic besties for the win.
Yeah.
Like, you guys hate each other. Why are you friends?
Oh my gosh.
But you love each other. You don't know what else to do. Literally, she's just like, I just couldn't do it. Like, he just was taking advantage. He's like, you ruined this for me.
Yeah,
And then 3 episodes later.
I mentioned earlier, like, I had a friend when I was like 17. She was 15. She was dating a 29-year-old. All my friends knew about it. Nobody was saying anything about it. Finally, I like went to my mom about it. I lost my entire friend group.
Yeah, oh my God, that happened.
Like, everybody in the group being like, I can't believe that Tristan turned his back on Maya. Are you kidding?
Right.
He's a sad, lonely boy who nobody loves, or who feels at least that nobody loves him. He feels finally somebody's taking an interest in him, and you took that away. And yes, you were right to, but of course he's upset.
Yep.
Yeah. Interesting point.
That's why those predators win with people who are, in that headspace, because like you isolate yourself. It's so easy to just be the only one and feel like it's us against the world.
Once in college, Manny has a relationship with her drama professor, Mick. Is this student-teacher dynamic inappropriate, considering that they are two consenting adults? Or is there still a power dynamic here that should have been addressed?
So I would like to start once again by saying, fuck that guy.
Yeah.
Like, he treated her
That
horribly.
guy sucks.
Even like
I
Emma
feel
knew,
like
she's like, this dude's fucking you up, girl. Like, she
Yeah,
knew how she hated him.
He was
I
very
feel like
controlling.
he was like the embodiment of those who can't teach do.
Yes.
Or those who can't do teach.
Yes.
Right.
Like, he was never going to make it as an actor, so he's going to teach at Smithdale and whatever. Here's
And
this
he
girl
sees
who's
that she
got
can.
talent, who's going places. Can't have that.
It disgusts me when he's telling her that she can't because it's not in the way that he wants her to do something.
Right.
Like, she is a queen and she can do whatever she wants. You are not even like shit under her shoe. I was so irked that whole arc, because it's like, Manny, you have continually let these dudes that are not worth nothing, none of your time, tell you who you are. Manny, no, stand up for yourself, bitch. Like, and I mean to call you a bitch in an encouraging way.
Right,
Come on, girl.
right.
Well,
that's the whole show, the whole movie. I was trying to like.
I feel like with Mick, even though she's of age, even if she wasn't a student, that man has never been in and will never be in a relationship that isn't predatory, regardless of whether or not there's any of that power dynamic there. That man is somebody who breaks you down to feel better about himself. And that's always who he's going to be.
I was going to say, it's insecurities worth screaming. Like, someone who's super insecure only acts like that to bring their partner down.
Okay, so guys, after all these like relationships that we discussed and we've seen on the show, diehard fans, what was the most realistic example of a Degrassi student-teacher relationship, and what was the worst?
I think definitely the hardest to watch, but Tristan and Yates, I think, is the most realistic.
Yeah.
I would say that's the most realistic. I would say kind of tied for the same thing. Like, it was very hard to watch, and it's very realistic to how it would actually happen. Unfortunately, I don't think the teacher would be persecuted. Realistic, but like the one that they wanted us to believe was the most realistic, and I almost answered this, was Matt and Paige.
Yeah,
they wanted us to believe that one, and I feel like it's not the most realistic, because for Matt to have admitted that, like, he waited until the last second. It was very dramatic to be like, we had a relationship. Like,
well, and that whole relationship is weird to begin with too, because like Paige is the one pursuing it, and that's not justifying it or anything. Like, you're the adult here, it doesn't matter if a child is pursuing you, be an adult and tell her no. But like multiple times in that arc, Matt's like the whole time you feel like he's just not really that into it. Like, he's just like, my weekly poker night got canceled, so I guess we can make out.
So I guess
in the
I'm
boiler
just
room.
here, right?
Like,
he is super nonchalant about a lot of it, and I think that is a lot of the reason why they want us to think it's a natural thing. It's something that we should believe happens in schools across Canada and America and everywhere else every day. This is student teacher attraction. Like no,
not
no,
normal.
there's something wrong there.
I think that the least realistic example for me was Miss O and Sav, because there's no way everyone's talking about she's attracted to you, she likes you. Like when people know, especially that there's something going on, students would have that been all over the school and it would have got found out. The fact that it was not found out was phony.
Was phony. Especially Mr. Simpson is the principal at that time.
Yeah.
Why the fuck Archie didn't step in and say,
well,
no?
You know what? By the same token, though, I can totally understand given Archie's history with Darcy.
Oh yeah.
Archie being
at this time
hesitant to act, and and Sav is like, oh no, I made that up to sound cool, and Archie having been falsely accused, being like, okay.
At this time, we have to consider that Darcy has Darcy, and we can't.
Darcy. She likes snakes better. What can she say?
She done ran through the bitch and left Snake in her wake.
They have so much anger towards Darcy just for that whole storyline. Like
that's why I said, like, I want to love Darcy because Shanae Grimes is a very unproblematic person. But I really hate Darcy. And it's not about anything else other than her personality.
From the minute she joins the cast until she disappears to Africa.
Right.
She sucks.
Horrible.
And the only good thing about her is that she brought us Claire.
Right.
She introduced Claire to the show, and like that's about it. Darcy, fuck you.
She just falls off the planet. Like even when Claire is like pregnant and going through her cancer, like I was like, where is Darcy?
Where the
come
fuck
back?
is Darcy?
I love when Claire's mom marries Jake's dad, and there's the wedding cake with the whole family on it.
And Darcy is just not there. Darcy got wrote out, and they just forgot about it.
They did.
Like,
they totally forgot about her. So this is my final question, and this is an interesting one, considering how much teen television is out here now. Look at the new Gossip Girl reboot. I don't know if you guys watched that, but what can current television?
I watched that. Yeah.
Learn from the Degrassi student-teacher dynamics that were presented throughout the seasons?
I think they can show more consequences for these teachers.
Yeah.
Stop
painting these as romantic relationships.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of y'all watched Pretty Little Liars.
Yeah.
But like, they got married.
I know, ridiculous.
Why did they get married? Why was that the finale? Like they thought that's what we wanted. I didn't want that. I don't want that. I wanted to see Emily be with somebody who wasn't trash. That's what I wanted. I didn't want Emily to end up with Allie. Why is Emily got twins with Allie in the back? That's what I wanted to see.
None of how they finished that series was okay. And I feel like I gave 7 years of my life. And I would argue tooth and nail that it was a better show than people gave it credit for. And I think when it started, it was. But how are you going to give me 2 surprise evil twins in a season?
I agree.
But
and even though I like Tro, I love Tro and Belisario, and I feel like she's the only one that could have did that shit with a straight face.
Yeah.
Because I would have been rolling through that whole shit. Laughing through that whole stuff. Like, y'all want me to do what? Okay, ain't nobody gonna believe this, but okay. And she just took it with like a champ, and she did great. But that I could have done without it. Y'all could have read the books. Y'all could have found y'all could have did what they did in the books, and I would have been happy.
But as much of a mess of all of it was, like, I hate that Arya and Ezra was this romantic relationship where they ended up being endgame. Yeah. And I think that, Degrassi did that. They weren't endgame, but they tried to paint Matt and Paige as romantic, and more so Sav and Miss Oh. And I think shows need to stop doing that, because we can sit as grown-ups and watch that and say, this isn't okay. But the 15-year-olds who this is marketed towards are sitting there watching that going, oh, that's so romantic.
That's right, especially because it's on my favorite show. And Bianca, that the Gossip Girl reboot makes me sick.
Yeah.
Because I watched the original Gossip Girl. They had Serena be in a number of questionable relationships. They had Serena be with her professors, her teachers, dudes that were way older than her. And she should have, it was because she looked older. But they never, and they always made it seem romantic, and they made it her fault. Like, okay, she's in all these relationships that are glorified, whatever. In the new one, they have an opportunity to do it differently, because this was a different, I don't even want to say it's a different time, because it does not seem that long ago to me, but a lot more things were permissible. They put a lot more things on TV than they put on TV now. In this reboot, why is there a gay teacher who is known, they know this about him, that he preys on 18-year-olds, 17, 18-year-olds, and has relationships that are sexual. And then a student pursues him, and it's a whole like cat and mouse game, and this is tantalizing, and no, I don't date my students, and I don't do this and that, and then they fuck.
Yeah.
And it's, of course, the student is the one who has to turn it and be like, this is disgusting, and shut it down. And I think that that's why they think it's a better depiction of these relationships. Yeah. But don't show me that shit. Right. Like, I think that you have the opportunity to shut it down.
Like, and if you're not going to shut it down, at least do it in a way where it is like clear that this isn't okay. Don't glorify it. Don't romanticize it. Because these things do happen. And we should talk about them. And they should probably be portrayed in our media, but don't fucking romanticize it.
Yeah.
That was their problem. The new Gossip Girl reboot, which is a whole nother conversation, is just super not sure what it wants to show you. Because the original Gossip Girl worked because it was a time when we didn't really have social media. Yeah. We didn't know about how the other half lived. Now we know. We know. We can just go on fucking Instagram and see their all the crap they have. Like, we can see it. It doesn't, it's not a mystery anymore. And I feel like they're trying to make it different, but that's why the old Gossip Girl worked, because it was just not, it wasn't showing you the same thing. And I feel like now they're trying to do different controversial topics that they think people will relate to. It's like, where do you stand on this? I want my media to have a firm stance. I want to know what you think about what you're showing me. And especially with that student teacher dynamic, he becomes a part of the Gossip Girl. Not to spoil it for y'all, but like, it's Gossip Girl's a committee. And this, it's not just a person, it's a committee in this new one. And it's just like, he becomes a part of it and starts blackmailing people. And it's just like, what do you want to get out of this storyline? Do you feel okay with this relationship? And I think, especially with the Hulu show that I haven't watched, but I've heard a lot about, with one of the Mara sisters, a teacher. Yeah, I've heard a lot about that, how it also glorifies sexual relationships between teachers, and it makes it teachers and students.
In that one, until the very last episode, that was weird about that one. The very last episode is where it depicts the consequences of that relationship and how it affects the young man. And that was the problem with me, is how it waited till the very last episode to do so.
You know what, though? I can see, and having not seen it, I can see that kind of storytelling actually being valuable, because if you picture being the student in that relationship, of course it's rose-colored glasses. Of course it's romantic. You know, you're special and you're not like other kids your age, and this cool grown-up sees that in you and they love you for it. And I think I can see, like, depicting that, getting caught up in that and the whirlwind of it all. And I think as long as you have it come crashing down, I think as long as at the end of the day, the takeaway was, no, this was not a great romance. Having a stretch where you portray it as such, I think there's merit to that.
I agree with that. I did not know about that, because I haven't personally watched a teacher series, Bianca. So I appreciate you filling in that they did eventually show consequences. And I do have a problem if they waited until the end, but at least they did it. Like,
they did do it.
Degrassi has a problem with, like, especially because the format it was based on is like the after school special. We need to get an issue tied up in this 30 minutes, whatever. That is a flawed model, because we care about the characters and we want to see them get resolutions or justice for the things that happen to them. And a lot of the time you have to wait multiple episodes because they start focusing on other people. It's like, well, whomever just got like shot last episode, are you not going to tell us what happens? Like, I actually really hated that when Jimmy got shot. We didn't find out if he was good, and like they just popped him up in a hospital bed. Like 2 episodes later, I'm just like, y'all, something's wrong with y'all.
I was gonna bring up the Paige and Matt episodes because I was going through them last night, and I was like, oh, now we're on this episode like an Emma storyline. Now we're on this episode like an Ellie storyline.
Right.
Yes. Right. Like I was about to send in the chat, like, y'all don't get sucked up into the side plots because they're there. But I was like, I was watching scenes that weren't relevant to the video, and I was really like,
okay, but is Joey gonna sell his house?
Right.
Well, I think that is the end of the student-teacher relationship. So I just,
yeah.
And I think it was very interesting, like all of our opinions and what we had in there, and how Degrassi kind of covered it over so many seasons. Those 4 kind of instances.
Yeah.
So thank you,
shove it down our throats.
Miss Caroline, for being here and discussing it today.
Thank you, Bianca, for having us.
Yeah, thank you, Bianca. It was so fun.